Russell, our local mayor from the Big Valley Shire Council. How are you, Russ?
I'm terrific. Why wouldn't I be living in a place like this?
Yeah, you're going to hear that a lot.
Of course you will.
Yeah, it's interesting. You would travel with your role, travel back to cities all the time. What do you think when you go back to the city after having
What am I
lived
doing
here?
here?
Okay.
Why would I want to come back?
Yeah.
I guess I worked in Sydney for 10 years
Yeah.
and owned a house in Sydney for a while. And best move I ever made was coming back home.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
It was always going to happen. Like most people who are schooled or grow up here, at some time in your life you say, I just want to go home.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what happens. It's a beautiful place, but we got all this wonderful scenery and beautiful stuff. But to me, it's always the people.
Yeah.
The people in our area are just sensational,
Yeah.
Friendly,
Yeah,
open.
just like us. We're fabulous.
Wherever you go, whether it's down the main street of Pemba or Eden,
Yeah.
I'm the sort of bloke who will talk to anyone and say good day to anyone.
Yep.
My wife gets cranky on a Saturday morning when it takes me 2 hours to go and pick up my Saturday morning paper.
Yep.
and stuff like that. So that's the beauty of it. And we got all the scenery and beaches and everything in the world, the golf courses, the whole lot.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, because I'm being a city person as well who's moved here, I wouldn't move back to the city as well, but I sit on a national board and I go back to Sydney on a regular basis for meetings. And to be honest with you, it actually it makes you appreciate the city more because I love going back to the city as a tourist.
Yeah.
I do things like I went to see Hamilton.
Or you jump on the ferry across to Manly and do
Yeah,
it. Don't worry, I do the same thing when I go back. But
so I
that's
think moving away from the city helps you realise how great it is to go back and enjoy it because you're not being ground down by the rat race.
Right, exactly, but
Yeah.
I guess it drives you mad as well. Like, we've got 4 sets of traffic lights in the whole Bega Valley Shire. So.
Yeah, that's in the whole Shire.
Shire, yeah.
In Marimbula,
There's
there's
2.
is there 2? Oh, and one's only a pedestrian
One's
crossing.
only a pedestrian
It doesn't
crossing,
even
yeah.
count.
Yeah. And then the 2 in Bega, so that's all we've got.
And look, we have traffic jams occasionally in between Christmas and the end of January on one set of lights. But if you're a local, you know how to get around it, so you don't have to stay in the traffic jam that might last for how long? 4.5 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. That's about it.
So it's pretty laid back.
And it's been there for years because it used to be a single lane bridge and now it's a 2-lane bridge, but we still have a bottleneck. And there's a lot of problems around.
Yeah, that's right. It's more a bottleneck rather than a traffic jam. You know, there's none of this 2 hours to commute. Tell us about that because there's a lot of people in the cities who do spend hours on public transport or in their cars every day commuting to the job. Maybe not so much with working from home. But we'll go back to some form of normal at some stage. What's your commute? Where do you live in the Shire?
I live at Greg's Flat.
Which is just south of Pambula?
Just south of Pambula.
On the way to Eden?
When I work at South Pambula. So it's about a 4-minute drive from my front yard to work. And usually pass about 3-4 cars makes it.
Yeah.
When I go to work. If I go up to council chambers in Bega, it's a half an hour drive.
Yep.
But that's 3 or 4 times a week.
Yep.
But yeah, the traffic's minimal.
So if you want a reason to make a sea change, that's got to be one of your reasons is to do that.
And usually now with all the phone technology, you just catch up on your phone calls in the car on the way home.
Yeah, actually, as a real estate agent, that's one of the best things. I'll call you back, but it'll be in the car when I'm driving between appointments because that's time that you can actually just focus on that phone call rather than a million other things. Tell us what council's doing. I think the big thing that's happening at the moment is the upgrade to the airport. What's the deal with that?
So we've got some major infrastructure work. So we're building a general aviation area at the airport. I think there's about 30 to 40 hangars, which will allow private general aviation plane operators to work out of those, as well as we're upgrading the runway. So we managed to bring Qantas on site. We've usually only had a REX service into town, which was a great service, 3 days a week post-COVID, pre-COVID. Sort of thing, so it serviced the public really well. But the REX fleet and the number of passengers, so then Qantas come into the market, so that's provided some competition and reduced the prices. And they're both operating pretty well at the present time. Moving forward, it'll be interesting to see how many flights we get out of both airlines, but at the moment they're basically operating every day. And
the good thing is that they kind of operate at different times, and I found that flying to Sydney that I might fly up REX, come back Qantas because there's a better schedule on weekends with one of them.
And they're probably looking at different markets as well as what they do. So that suits into both the business people and the tourist people.
But people who need medical appointments as well. We have specialists in, and that we'll talk to some other health people later on. But a big concern for people is when they make a sea change is what about, specialists? What about the health possibilities? But people do go out of town still to see the specialists that they want to.
Yeah, that's a change that's occurring. The state government have announced a new hospital in the Eurobodalla region, which we've already got our new hospital at South East Regional Hospital, which is a beautiful facility, up-to-date modern facility. But the problem has always been the attraction of specialists into it, and the quantity of the people that, the numbers of people those specialists need to actually have a viable practice there.
Yep.
So with the onboarding of the new Eurobodalla Hospital and the two hospitals together, will provide that opportunity for specialists to come and live permanently in the area and work between the two hospitals.
Yep.
So moving forward in 4 or 5 years' time, when that hospital gets opened at Maria, well, that'll provide us with an excellent health service. The biggest problem, I think, as you talk to the health people later on, will be the training of staff up and the job opportunities there and getting the people pre-trained to go into those jobs. So hopefully we can work solutions around that.
Yep.
And I think that's a total positive for the area. So.
And currently there is agreement with the ACT government. Can you explain
Yeah, so
that?
the ACT government through the Canberra Hospital is our tertiary 5 hospital. So anyone who needs major surgery goes to Canberra at the present time. But as I said, the two hospitals together will actually allow that. They'll both be what's called level 4 hospitals, which then allows the scope of works. South East Regional Hospital is already built with 4 operating theatres and hasn't worked at that capacity since it's opened, basically around that because of the quantity of numbers and the private hospital system being in Canberra with Calvary and that. So.
But even with all this stuff in the wings and happening, I remember when my baby had, it's a long time ago now, but my baby had a really bad problem and he was flown out from here to Canberra at 11 o'clock at night.
And
so
we have that service.
Yeah, and that service is still
available,
there as well.
And that's what the airport does. And we're extending the runway both ends, so it allows slightly bigger planes, but it also allows the services and guarantees that. The new terminal's now been opened and it looks fantastic. So, and that's a gateway to the Shire. But I think in the property market, what it's doing is actually, because we've got that service there, the airport service, it's actually attracting property buyers into the area and things like that. So what planes numbers of seats go through now, and with the extension of the runway, what sort of planes are going to be able to come in? So Rex fly their Saabs, which are about 40 seaters, and Qantas are flying about a 50-seater, Q300. They'll be able to go to the next size, which is a Q400, which is around about a 78, 80-seater sort of thing, so in one flight. So what it'll actually do is possibly reduce the number of flights, but it'll allow more people on the one flight, which comes back to the amenity of the place. You haven't got planes coming in every half hour or whatever. You'll only have 1 or 2 a day. So.
I used to live in the inner west in Sydney, and I currently live on the approach into the Merimbula Airport. Trust me, 1 or 2 flights a day and a couple of single engines. It ain't a problem once you've actually lived under the flight path in Sydney.
I can imagine.
The other big issue for people, obviously, and that's the main talk around at the moment, and it's not just Merimbula, but it's Australia-wide, is there is a shortage of housing. So people who want to move here may find it difficult to find a house to buy and virtually impossible to find somewhere to rent. So what's your take on that?
Some serious problems for the Shire. We're trying to move forward. We're allowing more dual occupancies on some of the rural properties, and we also reduced our lot sizes down in some areas to try and cater for that, which hopefully will be a generational change. We're trying to get more infill into our CBD areas, so we can get redevelopment of the CBD areas through that, through our environmental plan, allowing the lot sizes or the unit sizes to come down and the floor space to come down there. So there's a lot of development going on.
And just so, I know you live your life talking about this stuff, but let's talk about, and put it in language people might understand. So on some of the rural blocks, you're basically allowing people to build another house.
Another house for occupancy on their place, and it doesn't have to be attached to their existing place. Depending on the size, it can be within 100 metres of their existing place. So we're just looking at all those sort of avenues all the time.
So that's kind of great for people who want to build a bit of a granny flat out the back, not just for granny, but for people that they might want to rent that to and get some income.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's helping there. In the CBD, when you're talking about the, infills, what does that mean?
So we've got very old CBDs that have been around for generations, where probably our grandparents moved to town from their rural property back in the 70s or whatever, lived on an acre block still in town. That acre block's not feasible to be in town anymore as a household. So what we're trying to do is allow development on those acre blocks into 250 square metre lots, which will allow you to put 4 townhouses on that block. So instead of having the one house, we end up with 4 townhouses.
Yep.
So, but again, that's a generational change and a property owner change that we need to happen. That we've sown to do that. So hopefully that will happen over a period of time.
Is that hard to do? I suppose you've got people who, the children of family who built here, who have this now astonishing block of land in the middle of the city with, gosh, they're amazing views. Do they want to give those properties up to?
Some do, some do.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you've got to look where that person or where are going to live. So we need that to happen in some ways. And you know, it's a choice for the families, I know that.
Are there developers around that actually want to do that?
We have some developers in the area now, which is getting quite exciting, looking at, you know, full retirement living units, sort of thing in certain areas, and that's exciting, and that'll happen over a period of time. But the biggest problem around that is trying to get tradesmen, as everywhere up the east coast.
And it's important to say that this isn't just Merimbula. This is happening Australia-wide, and I'm getting the wind up again. I'm hopeless. Isn't this terrible? I told you I could talk all day. Merimbula and the Bega Valley used to have the reputation for being God's waiting room. Is it?
No, not in my eyes. We have a vibrant community, and young people are really enthusiastic who love their community. Yeah. Sure, we have an elderly population. When you look at our average age base is around 60, 62. When you look at that, you think that's pretty high. But part of it's 2 and 3 generations of families still living here. For instance, my mother still lives at over 55's living place at Acacia Ponds, and my children live here. So you've got 3 generations here. Most families are like that here. Yeah. And then people come into that and see that community network, and they just say, we want to be part of that, and that's exactly what.
And look, when we moved to town, and we moved to, you know, one thing to have kids down here, to have kids out, you know, we didn't want to be in Sydney, and there's always been an incredibly vibrant group, a network of services and activities and support networks for families. So don't believe anything you might be reading. It's no longer God's waiting room.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Russell. Really great to have you here. I'm going to take 5 minutes to have a glass of water and find out who I'm interviewing next. We'll see. See you soon.